Hello, Spark 2021. My name is Chelsea Mackey. I run brand marketing at Apartment List. I have been supporting this amazing Spark event for 4 years now. And yes, I'm the one who embarrassed myself this morning with that cold opening. Matthew Woods really did spray me in the face with hand sanitizer, not water. I am super excited to be here talking with Luke Marklin, CEO at Bellhop today. Luke, before we dig in, I just wanted to confirm for the audience on that last commercial break. They're pretty high standards for movers at Bellhop. This guy would have never been hired, right?
He would not. He does not fit the bar. Sadly, he does exist in real life. I guess that's why we have a business, though.
Exactly. And an alternative for this skit was actually to just cast my kid brother and see what happens when like a 21-year-old who still lives at home with mom takes care of your prized possessions. But this guy was a much better actor, so we decided to cast him. Luke, tell me a little bit about you. Where did you grow up? What were you like as a kid?
Well, I guess first I'll say, thanks for having me come on after Andre Iguodala. That's a great bar to live up to. And sadly, I'll just tell you, I'm not going to live up to it. So I'll keep it short. Very standard upbringing, Midwestern guy from St. Louis, about as cookie cutter of a suburban upbringing as you can imagine. Maybe the only thing that I can kind of think about is it did seem like when I was young, I was always like working, like as soon as I could. My parents would let me. I was working on jobs, and they always seemed to be weird service jobs. I was a bagger, lifeguard. I think I made $5 an hour folding clothes at the mall. So maybe that's like where I decided that I wanted to get in the service business and hospitality business. Maybe that's where I started. So who knows? But pretty basic upbringing.
Why does it not surprise me that you are a very hardworking kid? Tough to follow Andre Iguodala. He's pretty amazing. I didn't realize you could actually be starstruck on the other side of a computer screen, but I would totally was. You're doing a fantastic job, though. I think you're living up to the challenge. So normal upbringing, normal childhood. What was your inspiration or motivation to join Bellhop other than your fantastic work ethic as a child? Love to hear more about that story.
Well, I guess if you my wife, we over the last 10 years of marriage have moved 8 times. And so when I was considering joining Bellhop, she said, yes, you're officially qualified to run a moving business. So I guess that's a good thing. But so she, all jokes aside, I was working at Uber at the time. And when I was looking at joining Bellhop and becoming CEO, I looked at the opportunity that Bellhop and the problem that Bellhop was solving, and it felt just a very, very close tie to the same transformation that Uber was doing in the transportation space, and really saw that moving was a outdated industry where there'd been very little innovation. Customers were usually very, very underserved. And there could be a big business here if we could use technology to solve it. So I think that was one. And then I started to learn more about the business, and I felt like the playbook that Bellhop was using was very similar to the playbook that Uber was using, creating a modern digital experience, using tech to drive efficiencies and better quality in the business, bundling things into one app so it's a one-stop shop. And I felt like Bellhop had the winning hand to go transform the industry. And then I think the last piece is I met the team and I fell in love. The culture of Bellhop is second to none, and I fell in love. And here I am today.
That's awesome to hear. All those moves in 10 years, it sounds brutal. But it also sounds like you might not have been using Apartment List, because we really help find people their perfect home. One thing I'd really love to expand on is this great culture at Bellhop that you mentioned, and just really being sold when you met the team and kind of spent some more time there, especially right now, given the pandemic. it's so hard for all of us to stay connected. Before this, we were just talking about how much we missed being in the office together. And I find it so difficult to get folks to stay emotionally invested in their work, their peers, and in the company in general. So what's Bellhop doing that's really different and kind of driving that piece, even in this kind of like hybrid remote type of world?
Yeah, I think the basic answer is we just really spend a lot of time defining why we're here and why do we exist. And we, a lot of companies focus on what they do. We really started with why are we doing it, and a lot of it is what I kind of started to allude to is there's 10,000 moving companies. People are not short of options, but the average moving company review is a 2.6 external review. You wouldn't go to a restaurant with that review, but yet you'll give this company all your stuff. And there's actually studies that say that moving is as stressful as getting a divorce, right? And so it's this thing that people do 10, 15 times in their lives. It's super stressful, and companies aren't making it any better. So it's a pretty easy sell to anyone who's joining our company. If you're excited about solving that problem, this is a good place for you. And so I think everyone here has a connection to that mission. But equally important in a service business is you actually have to say how you're going to solve it. Because there's a lot of different ways that companies do that. And the ones that obsess on the details on how they solve it, I think are the ones that really are special. And so for us, we've said we're going to have people that have a servant's heart, an innovator's mind, and a winner's drive. And those three things are going to come together, and that's who we're going to look for. That's who we're going to hire. That's what we're going to never compromise on. And when we see those, we're going to make a big deal about them. And I think that's kind of been the fundamentals of how we've made that culture and how we've surrounded ourselves with people who are connected with the mission.
I love those mission statements that you mentioned, and love to hear you say that. We're fortunate because not as many people get to work in an industry or at a company that's so ubiquitous as moving or finding people a home. And so that really resonated with me being an apartment list. It's a painful process, and so trying to help reinvent that is such a powerful thing and something we can all relate to. So obviously, renting, moving, we go hand in hand. If you could change three things about moving industry, I know there's a few things I would want to change on my end as well, but if you could change three things about moving, what would they be?
How long of a segment do we have? I guess if I have to cut it, I guess I'll cut it down to three. There's a lot we're trying to work on, but the three I would pick. All right, first would be the obvious one. For some reason, there's animosity. You saw that video, and that actually probably strikes home with a lot of people. There's tension. You feel like the mover is working against you, not for you. You feel like they're going to hit you with hidden fees, and they're going to nickel and dime you. And that just has to end. I mean, I can't believe that there's even an industry that exists where that animosity exists between the customer and the company. So that's number one. Number two, it's pretty archaic, right? It's the 21st century. We're actually 21 years into the 21st century, and still there's only one company that you can go online, tell them what you want, and book your move right then and there. That's us. Every other company, you get a lead form, they'll call you back, there's an email, there's other stuff. And that's just crazy. Why everywhere else in our life do we expect things to happen at our fingertips? But in moving, they were still decades behind. So I think we need to make it a lot more modern. And then finally, like, moving is stressful because of the movers, for sure. So we need to fix that. But there's just a lot that you have to do. You have to quarterback a lot to move. And we think that, we're in the 21st century. We can consolidate a lot of these things. We can have things talk to each other. We can have companies be more one-stop shops to take the burden off of all the things that people have to do to move. And so we think that there needs to be a lot more partnerships, a lot more working together, a lot more integrations between all the different people that are involved in moving to take the burden off the customer and make it more streamlined and more seamless.
Absolutely. One of the words that really stood out is like this concept of modernization. Our industries can be described as archaic so often. And so, how do we advance this industry forward? What are the very first steps we need to take? We're sitting in front of 500 plus marketing professionals from all over the country. And I know that this is something we constantly ask ourselves in multifamily as well. So what do you kind of have to say to all of these folks about that, the problem that we're all struggling with?
Yeah, I mean, the first step is to set the standard, right? Really raise the bar that we're in the 21st century and we should expect a modern, customer centric, digitally driven experience, right? Full stop. And we don't need to make an exception for moving. So let's just raise that bar and let's just expect that, right? And let's expect that the companies we're going to work with that are in moving are not going to act like a bunch of franchises, a bunch of fiefdoms that have their own rules and really make you do all the work. But let's expect the company to actually make it easier for us, right? Let's expect that. And then, so once we set the bar, then we have to invest in it, and we have to invest either through technology or through partnerships. And I think we've obviously invested a lot in technology. We've raised a lot of capital for that, but we're also investing in partnerships, really with the goal of integrating. The 75% of people are holding off on moving, not because of money, not because they don't have a reason to move. They'd like to move, but they don't want to because it's a hassle. And it's a hassle because there's 1,000 things you have to do. And and all those 1,000 things don't talk to each other. And so I think as companies that want to make this problem better, no one's going to be able to solve it themselves if we don't work together. And if we don't create partnerships and work together to integrate the process and make it easier for customers.
That's so true. And something about what you said, setting the bar. Yesterday, or not yesterday, on Tuesday, one of the sessions we kicked off Spark with was all about being customer obsessed and coming back to this idea of just providing this superior service, being so pleasantly surprised and delighted every time you engage. And so we just have different expectations for moving and for renting. We just go into it assuming it's going to be this painful process. And so setting that bar and setting that standard so high for us internally to kind of lift the expectations is so important.
People to be as excited about moving as going to a nice hotel, right? You want, why not? The name Bellhop was chosen for a reason, right? And it's why not have that same concierge level experience when moving as you do in other hospitality driven industries.
Absolutely. Music to our product team's ear after they just gave that amazing update about how we're so committed to this concept of concierge and just really supporting people through the entire process. So I love it. So much synergies between our two companies. It's great. So switching gears just a little, COVID, it's the thing we have to talk about. It changed so much about people in terms of how they think about home and work, right? And so we obviously, Igor just talked a little bit about trends. What are things that you're seeing kind of on the moving side that are a little bit interesting that you'd love to share?
Sure. Yeah. We definitely will probably reiterate a lot of the themes that people have felt and have read in the headlines. The Zillow called it 2020 the Great Reshuffling, and we certainly feel that way. The uh, teleworking is a thing, and because people were able to work in places that weren't directly attached to their business, we saw last year our long distance business boom, almost doubled, and the places people were leaving were the usual suspects. They were, number one was New York, Chicago, DC. These were the places people were leaving from, and we saw a huge spike in long distance moves last year. Interestingly, though, say over the last quarter, we've seen that trend start to shift. And if we just isolated New York, actually our long distance business in New York as an origin city is down. It's down 30% year over year. Okay, but here's the interesting thing: the overall business in New York is up over 200%. So there's a lot of activity, but it's people moving within the city now. So it feels like the long distance kind of teleworking trend may have played heavily last year, but now we're just seeing the normal kind of intra-city trends that we're used to. And I think the final piece is the markets that are the hottest for us right now, I guess pun intended, are in the Sun Belt. They're the markets like Atlanta, Phoenix, Charlotte, Austin. All of them are growing 80 to almost 200% for us year over year. And it seems like those are some of the hotbeds, both as a destination city and just activity within the city.
I totally, it's interesting looking, for a place to move to right now, and seeing kind of where those where there's low vacancy and where there's high vacancy, seeing, I think, sure there's just so much that you guys are seeing as well on that end. I'm actually looking for a place in New York, and there's nothing because everybody around the city is grabbing it up and moving around right now. And so waiting for those opportunities to open up here again. And then, obviously, I want to spend a few minutes to talk about our recent partnership. It's been just a dream. I know you mentioned the amazing culture, but I've gotten to experience it firsthand working with your team. And, with our partnership, really being able to kind of offer our clients this super unique and compelling alternative rent concession in the form of a free local move for their prospective tenants. And so, we can dig into the details later, but what motivated Bellhop to really invest in this partnership with us?
Well, first, we think we found an amazing partner. The things that we describe around the companies we want to do business with that share our values, we found that in Apartment List, right? We found a company who has a huge desire to raise the bar in this space, who wants to make the process incredibly seamless, and who's making the right investments in being very data driven, being very customer focused to actually really make it happen. So we found an amazing partner in Apartment List, and so we were going to do something, right? And then it was really fun as we started to talk at a higher level of what could we do to really say, wow, there's an opportunity here to really have a win, and a win. A win for Apartment List, a win for Bellhop, and a win for the apartment owners. We think we've created something that truly can deliver on that seamless process and actually deliver something that's a really valuable kind of growth driver for apartments.
Absolutely. Rent concessions have been so similar in what we see in the markets of a free month's rent. And it's so compelling to be able to offer something that is lower cost and just such a high value to the perceived tenant, in terms of that pain point. You talked so much earlier around it's people avoid it. They don't want to move because they know what comes along with it. I'm myself feeling that impending doom of like, I have to pack all this stuff up. And I do think that this brings so much value to properties and renters, and would love to kind of hear your perspective on that as well.
I might be a little biased, but really the data says that this is as close to a free lunch as you can get. Many apartments are giving concessions now, right? And it's usually in the form of a month or two of free rent, right? Well, what we have found is that a move is almost always cheaper than a month of rent, and it almost always converts higher than a month of rent. So there you go, right? And the reason it converts higher is because, there's a non-cash value to it. It just takes the stress out of the move and makes it easier for the customer. And so it's kind of a free lunch with an added benefit of a happier customer at the end. And I think everyone, at least the multifamilies that we have talked to, they've all tried this. They've all tried to do it at the kind of unit level, at the city level, try to get a local mom and pop to work with, and it's never worked. Why? Because they ended up having to do all the work. The mover said, okay, hey, just book a move, anybody else. It's fine. We'll help you move, whatever. That's obviously not the case with us. We're not franchised. We're centrally managed, one account team, tech driven. The things that Apartment List has done to make it a seamless process for the apartment, a seamless process for the renter, really is very special. And then, really once we send you a landing page that you can share with your renter. They go through it. It takes about 2 minutes. I actually did it last night just to make sure. It takes about, and we get from there. The price is set and it's easy. And there's just no one else that's been able to do it like that. And we think that this is a very different offering than what anyone's ever seen before.
And, just to clarify for folks on the call that might not have heard about this, with the Bellhop and Apartment List partnership, what we're offering is flat rate moves for you to be able to offer free local moves within 50 miles of your community if you sign up with this partnership, and offer it however you want and on whatever ILS you're operating on. And it's really a compelling, unique opportunity. And I think that, as a marketer myself, what we're always trying to do is find different ways to grab someone's attention. But then on the flip side, the surprise and delight moment is really getting to work with your team. And I think the moment, that welcome email comes with the photos of the crew members that they expect to see, they're not like my brother who's going to be Snapchatting while he's loading your truck. The service is just so top notch, and it's such an amazing way to start this new chapter in your life, right? Like, it's what a great way to have a positive experience going into a new home. And I think that's why we see the renewal rates jump, and we see, all of those things, people having such a great experience. Awesome. One little note I'll say, if anybody wants to learn more, definitely, reach out to your rep, send a note to us, bellhop@apartmentlist.com, apartmentlist@bellhop.com. We're always in conversations about these things. So super, super excited about the partnership and glad to give everyone a little bit more info about it. So before we wrap up, Luke, I think, I wanted to end on something that was just so near and dear to my heart. I actually got to know about you on national television before we had a chance to engage in this wonderful partnership and interact more regularly. But I think a lot of people might remember the amazing coverage around the huge act of generosity in giving one of your own tenacious, hardworking employees, the ones that are doing all these amazing moves, your own car after they walked 20 miles to work one day. I know that this was back in 2018, but I would love to hear it from your perspective for folks that haven't actually heard this story before, because it's so special, and I would love to hear about it more.
Well, thank you. It was a cool moment. So we had a bellhop who had joined the platform and actually hadn't been on his first job yet. Kind of been through the onboarding process, was ready to go. His first job was the next day at 8 a.m. And at about 9 p.m., his ride called him and told him he can't make it tomorrow. And so Walter was the bellhop's name. Had a choice. He didn't have his own car. It was either to wake up in the morning early and try to figure it out, or go to sleep, wake up at midnight, and start walking. And he chose the latter, and he decided to walk from Birmingham to Pelham, Alabama, which is very far, 20 miles. And there's a part of the story where he almost gets to the house. He gets picked up by police officers. They actually take him out to breakfast. They were moved by his story. They drive him the last 2 miles to the customer's house. He was not going to tell the customer about the walk. The police officers had to volunteer that to the customer. She was so moved. She posted online, and then once we read about it, we were overwhelmed. And so, I think this goes back to the kind of culture discussion we had earlier, where how do you build a great culture? We say what's really, really important, And then when you see it in action, you just make a huge deal about it. And when we saw that Walter exhibited, grit and a resolve to not let a customer down no matter what, we knew that was like that we had to make a big deal about it. And that actually raised the bar for all of us. I mean, a 20-mile walk is a lot. And so we made a big deal about it. And it actually, I was in the market for a new car. So I gave him mine, made sure he was not going to have that problem anymore. And it ended up going viral. And because of that, not only did Walter get a car, but he had a GoFundMe with $100,000 in it. He had a college scholarship and all this great stuff. So really the special part about that story is to see what happened in Walter's life because of the decisions and the grit that he showed.
That's so amazing. And, I got a chance to watch the interview again. And, one of the things that you said was, this is what Bellhop is all about. And I really love that, just celebrating that hard work, that determination, and also just the empathy and the compassion and genuine care for people is so beautiful. And so how do you kind of keep that spirit alive in a company? Your company's growing like crazy right now. And so how do you kind of continue to make sure that all of your employees are, embodying that every day?
You get really clear on what you stand for, right? And a lot of that is bundled up in those values that we have. And they aren't just, a poster on the wall. They are a decision guide that says, here's what we do and here's what we don't do. And you get to a nitty gritty level that says, here's what we do, here's what we don't do. And then you don't compromise on them. And I will say that is much easier to say than to actually do in practice. So, and I will say that we are trying to be better at that. We will always be trying to be better at that. So I don't want to ever be on a soapbox. But we had a value at the time of grit, and when we saw it, we were able to make a really, really big deal about it. And then we, constantly now look for those within our culture and shout them out and make big deals about it. And I can say that probably the only real easy button solution to that, doing all those things, the only real easy button solution is to make sure when you hire, that criteria is what you use to hire. If you bring in people who share those values, then it's pretty easy. It's a lot easier to kind of align yourself around them. If you don't, you're probably going to be wasting your time trying to get people to buy in if it's not already in them in the beginning.
Totally. I absolutely agree. And I think such a huge takeaway for all of us at Spark today, how do we start living that? How do we start just, fueling that into both of our industries so much? Because we all deal with so many people every single day. People at a vulnerable point in their life where they're moving, where they're trying to find their home. And so how can we be so committed to providing like the most empathetic, compassionate, and positive experience for them, I think is just a big, big takeaway and a great one to close the day on.
I agree.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Luke. What a pleasure. Your insights, your story is so great. And again, thank you for the partnership. It's been such a great journey working with you.
Thanks, Chelsea. It's absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Bye, Luke. Okay. Thank you all for an amazing, amazing Spark Day 2. I'm here to just close things out. What a really great conversation with Luke coming out of that. I wanted to first say a quick apology for the technical difficulties this morning, but thank you all so much for hanging on those 6 very stressful minutes for me and the team while we got things up and running. And we will absolutely make sure that we are back and ready to go on day 3. So day 3 is going to be amazing. It is packed with so many wonderful things. It is our advocacy and action day. It is on Wednesday, May 26th. So make sure that you are there. We'll be sending out a ton of amazing communication and teasing some of the awesome artists and people that we have joining us for that day. I'm going to say goodbye and thank you all for a wonderful, wonderful Spark Day 2.